Hi everyone. So I want to do something a little bit different in this video, and that's talk about the FreeDOS website. Now, if you've been following me on Twitter and maybe a couple other places, you may be aware that I'm looking at making some changes to the FreeDOS website. I actually made a change to it about a year ago, and certainly websites should go under some kind of refresh or update on a regular cycle. 1 year may be a little bit too frequent, but there have been some specific changes I wanted to make to the website, and it can seem like a good opportunity to kind of do a whole bunch of things at one time. Now, before I talk about the changes that I want to make, let's actually take a real quick look at the FreeDOS website. And actually, we can explore what works and maybe what we'd want to change. So over here, I've got the current FreeDOS website, and there's a lot of great stuff about it and some things I'd want to change. Up here at the top, we've got a banner with all of our links on it, and you've got the logo, and you've got links to the wiki and our forums, place to report bugs, getting our source code, and then various links to other interesting websites. And if you aren't able to find the information that you need, we want to make sure that there's a search box up at the top that you can instantly do a search for the thing that you're looking for. A lot of that works really well. One thing I do want to get rid of is the links page because it's just a list of links. We've had that on the website, I think actually since the very, very beginning. But having a links page on your website is actually kind of bad form. It can actually reduce your page rank on, for example, Google and some other places because it kind of looks like you're a link farm. But it also makes more sense, I think, to kind of takes the links that are on that page and move them to other parts of the website where people are actually going to find that information when they're looking for that kind of information. So why look in two different places if you can just look in one? Below that, you can see I've got a big screenshot about FreeDOS, and actually you would start on this one over here. And this works, I think, pretty well, but at the same time, it has some problems. So my intention on having this screenshot here was to show information about FreeDOS, and I was actually hoping people would use these little chevrons to the left and the right to actually click through to look at the different images on the website. And at the same time, you can see there's some text here at the bottom that has more information about FreeDOS in those different modes. So for example, you've got information about FreeDOS, information about FreeDOS running games, FreeDOS running legacy applications, and then running FreeDOS in some sort of embedded environment. A couple of problems with that. One, people didn't realize that you could actually use these buttons to the left and right to switch between the different screenshots and learn more about FreeDOS. And also having this text over a screenshot actually makes the text kind of hard to read. Even though I tried to put a darker background behind it, it still makes the text itself difficult to read. And one of the goals I had in this new redesign is to make sure the website is accessible. So if you have a visual impairment or you're reading this through a screen reader, I wanted to make sure that the website is accessible to you. And yeah, text on an image can be difficult to read if you've got visual impairment. So I want to make sure that I updated that. Below that, I've got some information about FreeDOS. And so FreeDOS is open source software. And then I've got some interesting links, including a link to download FreeDOS. And having that information on the website, I think, is a great idea, and we definitely want to have something like that on the front web page. I think we can clean that up and make it a little bit easier to navigate. Below that, I've got the FreeDOS news, and that talks about the new developments that are going on in FreeDOS all the time. And we definitely want to have news on the front page as well. Although one thing I wanted to do in this redesign is actually make it easy to share any of our news items to places like Twitter or Facebook or Reddit, wherever. And so I want to be able to add some links in here we can actually share to those different social media sites. And at the bottom of the page, you can see I've got a big footer, and it's kind of messy. It's got a lot of information kind of stuffed into it. We've got links to our social media sites, Facebook, Twitter, but I want to clean that up as well. So there's some things that are good about this website and things that are not so great. Now, there are some things I'm thinking about changing. And so what I did is I created a test website that was what I thought was a good first draft on an updated version of the website. And certain people had said, yeah, they'd like to test that new website. So I sent them a list of what are called scenario tasks. Basically, imagine you're a certain user and you're trying to find this information. Can you find it? Not all of the website was built out, and in fact, only the front page was built out. But any link that you clicked on that would bring you to another part of the website would just have like a plain page that tells you what information is going to be there eventually. That website test worked out pretty well. And then I got enough feedback from that. I was able to make some changes. And so that brought me to a second iteration of the test website, which is right now on test.freedos.org. Now, it's got the green bar at top, and that's just a reminder you are on a test website, reminding you this is not a real production website. This will obviously go away when this goes to production. There's some things about this design that worked well and some things that didn't. Again, this version of the website, I also asked people to go through those scenario tasks. And if you click this read list, you can actually see what I was asking people to do. So if you have watched me talk about usability testing in open source software at various conferences or whatever, you know that part of a usability test is really a series of scenario tasks. And each scenario task is really just a brief statement to set the context. And then you ask your tester about something specific. So for example, number 2, imagine you wanted to download the latest version of FreeDOS. That happens a lot. Can you find out, or can you figure out what version you need? And can you download the right version? So that's a setting a brief context and then asking the tester about something specific. Now, I'm not there to run the usability test with you, and so this is really what's called an unmoderated usability test. And so the scenario tasks look a little bit different from what I would have in a moderated test, but this was enough that people could give me feedback, and at the bottom you can see I just encourage them to email me with their results. And I've got enough feedback at this point. I think I know enough about what I need to change going to the new website. And so if you look at the test website that we have right now, we've got this blue bar at the top in the header, replacing those, bands of darker and lighter blue. And that's much better for accessibility because if you have visual impairment, you're not able to see you're not able to see certain contrast very well. You want to have very high contrast. And so having a darker blue up here with the white text on top of it is easier to read. I still want to maintain our colors we've been using on the website for a long time. And so that's having primary color of blue with an orange accent color. And you can see here, I've got that orange stripe right below the main blue header. Now, some things I want to change on this based on the feedback I got in the second round of usability testing. And then one of those is that we probably should have the FreeDOS logo centered, and then below that have all of these links in the search box. So we can make that change. Below that, you can see I've got the welcome to FreeDOS, and I've replaced that single big image with the text, at the bottom, but on top of the image itself. And I've replaced that with this breakout of these 4 images. And each one tells you about the same stuff that was on the original website today. So it tells you about FreeDOS as an open source operating system that you can use to play, classic DOS games, run legacy software, or develop embedded systems. And there's a link to our YouTube channel right away. So you can see here, if you want to click on our YouTube channel, this will bring you to our YouTube channel. There's the little play button. A very obvious way of getting there. You can also click this button down here. It says more videos. And I think that works out pretty well as well, based on the feedback I've gotten from the second round of usability testing. And then these other sections also have images to kind of draw attention to them, but I've updated them from what's on the current website today. So over here, we talk about games. The image that I'm using is from Post-Apocalyptic Petra. In fact, it's a game that we talked about on the FreeDOS YouTube channel. In fact, this is a screenshot, a little frame grabbed from the YouTube channel. And my goal here actually is every time we release a new video on the YouTube channel, if it's got a DOS screenshot in it, I want to be able to grab that image and use that on the web page. So in theory, these 4 images should update on a fairly regular basis based on what the content is. Over here at the bottom left, we talk about running legacy applications on FreeDOS. And so here I've got a screenshot of Quattro Pro. Again, another video topic that we talked about in this channel. And so you can see a little screen grab from video where we actually are demonstrating using Quattro Pro on FreeDOS. And the lower right, where we talk about embedded systems. There's a couple of images that I could have grabbed videos from, but the here I'm picking a music player because you might want to create maybe an embedded music player to run at home. But it kind of shows an embedded system. Even if you didn't know that this was a music player, it would kind of feel like an embedded system to you because you're seeing these different bar charts that are out there. Again, you can click on the image itself, just like up here, we can click on this image and go to our YouTube channel because it's got the play button and encourages you to do that. But you can also click these other buttons below it to play games, embedded systems and legacy applications. That'll tell you more information about those different ways to use FreeDOS. And of course, below that, I've got some information about how to download FreeDOS. Rather than having a separate download page that you actually have to click into to then learn about downloading FreeDOS, we're going to give you the different options right up front. And so here you've got the option to download the cd-rom installer, which is the most common thing that people need to download. And so you've got a link to download the instructions and a link to download the different images that you might want to use. Same thing if you don't have a cd-rom installer and maybe you want to install an actual hardware. And for that, you need to use a USB fob drive. And so you can download the USB installer here. And so again, you can get the instructions and you can have a link to download those images. On the lower left, we're looking at creating a floppy version of the installer for FreeDOS 1.3 final version when we get there. And so here we've got information about using that floppy-based installer and how to download those images of the floppies. And the lower right, just to kind of round it off, I wanted to have some information about the files archive. So if you didn't want to download the full distribution, you just wanted to grab certain files that are out there, let's give you a link to explore a biblio. That's our files archive. And so you can see learning more about what's out there as well as downloading those files directly, just bring you into a biblio. Below that, you can see I've got our news. And so that needs to be on the front page as well. So you can see I've got, the headline when it was posted, as well as the text about the news itself. And then I've added these different icons that will let you share to different social media. And so if you click on that, it'll actually open up a browser tab to then share it to Facebook and Twitter and whatever else. I should say I'm not using any JavaScript to create those buttons. I'm also not using JavaScript up at the top of the page to create that link to YouTube. I'm not making an embedded video itself. These are all images and static links. So that way I'm not actually requiring people to, pass cookies around and things like that. I want to try to also maintain some privacy on this as well. And then the footer has been very much simplified. You can see we've got obvious links to the different social media sites on YouTube, and then a very simple footer that is using a darker background color than what we're using today. So there's a lot of stuff here that works well, but there's some tweaks that we can do as well to make it work even better. And so let's take a look at doing that. Now, behind me, you might be able to see I've got my printer, and in that credenza, I have a Raspberry Pi. Among other things, it's driving the printer so I can use it from anywhere in the house, but it also has a web browser running on it, or web server running on it. And so that allows me to create a test version of the website right there. So let's take a look at doing some coding on a website on the Raspberry Pi. Now, normally I would open up an SSH window, but here I'm going to do it through Cockpit, which gives me among other things, a terminal, so I can look directly at the device itself. So over here, I've moved over to the var www.html directory, and you can see I don't really have anything there yet. I've got a file that's got the news in it, as well as a directory full of images. Let's go ahead and start with a blank HTML page. Right now, you can see if I go to that site right now, I'm just getting the test website, just the generic website you get on any Fedora server. And so this is letting you know that, yeah, there's nothing there yet. So we need to create some content to do that. So let's go ahead and edit a new HTML page. And for that, I'll just do vi on index.html. Now, if you haven't done web coding before, there's not really much to it. HTML is pretty straightforward. So you need to have at the top a what's called a doc type. And so that is going to allow you to tell the browser what kind of a file this is. This is going to be an HTML file. And then the HTML file itself actually just starts and ends with an HTML tag. And then at the bottom of the file, it's got a /HTML. That's basically a closing tag. One thing you really should do on websites when you're going to be putting them out for lots of people, you want to have a language option in here as well. And so I'm going to add lang equals en. And so if you are browsing the FreeDOS website from Spain, you don't speak English, or at least don't speak English very well, your browser may offer to translate this from English into Spanish. So we want to put the language in there so that way your browser is able to identify the language all on its own. Now, there's some other things we would put between these HTML tags. One of them, there's a head that we can actually do some stuff that the browser will pay attention to. So we're going to put that in a head and then a head and then a slash head. And that allows me to define certain things. You can do lots of different things up here. One thing we're going to put up here is we might put in a title. And so we'll just say title. And then FreeDOS, and then the FreeDOS project. You'll notice everything goes in these angle brackets. That's how you create a tag in HTML. Another thing I like to put in there is something that tells the browser about what it is it's looking at. And so in terms of the language, I'm going to say, I'm going to add a meta tag here. And I would put in HTTP equiv, and that's going to be equivalent to content type. And I'm going to say the content for that is going to be, this is going to be a text HTML page, and the character set that it's using is going to be UTF-8. Now your server might actually set that for you. I like to set it on my own when I'm creating web pages, and that way people are able to, the browser is able to instantly know what it is I'm looking at. Nothing I want to put in here is about viewport, and so I could say meta, and then name is viewport, and then the content for that now tells the browser about what the viewport is. That's basically like viewing the page and what's the page size. And so here you want to say the width of that is going to be equal to the device width. And then the initial scale is going to be 1. And so those are 2 meta tags you would put in there. We're going to put some other stuff in there as well. And there's a lot of other things you could put inside the head. But for right now, we're going to kind of pause on that. So let's add some other stuff. Now, to create the web page itself, you need to have a body. And so you need to do that with these body tags. And yep, you're going to close that with a /body. And then inside there, you can put whatever you want. And so we might put, for example, just hello world, just to kind of show you one step at a time. So we'll go ahead and save this here. One step at a time. If I go over here, I can now do a reload on this page, and you can see I'm just getting the text hello world. So back to editing. Let's add some stuff. Now, under HTML, you usually want to have some kind of a header. That's certainly what I have on the new website. I have a header. And so we'll just, right now, just stub that out. And then I've got a main part of my website. So I'll say main. And then at the bottom, I'm going to have some kind of a footer. And so you can see I'm kind of breaking out the website into these main content areas. That's by having a header, by having a main, by having a footer, you're also helping visually impaired users. And so if you've got a screen reader or something, it's able to actually tell that person about the web page based on the structure of the website. It's also itself just a better way to organize your website. Now in the header, I might want to have a heading 1, which is basically a big title. And for that, I'm probably going to end up putting in an image. But for right now, let's just say FreeDOS. This is where we're going to put a logo later on. And then I want to have some links to help you navigate to different parts of the website. And so let's go ahead and create some links in here. So we're going to create a navigation area with a nav, and then it's going to end with a /nav. And then I'm going to create some links. And so let's just create a couple of links here. So ahref equals, and we'll just make a quick little link here to let's call it an anchor tag. And let's call that link. Okay. And let's go ahead and add a couple more links to the page. And so that should be 6 links I've got out there. And then remember, I also have that search box. And so I'm going to create a form. Oops. Create a form that has an input area. And that's a type of search. And then I'm going to have a button. And what is that button? It's going to have a button label of, we'll just say search. And then I need to finish my form. And that should be the end of my header. Let's go ahead and just save that and take a look at what we've got. You can see now I've got a heading that has my FreeDOS, and then these various links, and then my search box. That's what I need so far. Now in the body of the page, I'm going to create different sections. And so having these sections out there allows me to organize my content in a way that makes it easier for people to navigate in. So I'm going to create a couple of different sections in here. One section I'm going to want to create is, and we'll put a heading on that, and it's basically our welcome to FreeDOS, right? And so for there, I want to have some different screenshots of FreeDOS as well as information for people to visit. And so I might have let's do that as a series of what I call what are called figures. And so we're going to create a figure. And so I'm going to do that with an image right up front. And then we're going to say source equals. We'll put in an actual image here in a minute, but let's just do screenshot .png, and the alternate text is going to be screenshot of FreeDOS. Now I should make that into a link. And for right now, let's just go ahead and add an image, but that normally would be a link. And then below that, I'm going to have a caption on that image, and that's going to be with a fig caption. Let's go ahead and just copy and paste some information I have on the test website today. And so I'm going to go ahead and just highlight this, and then we'll go back over here, and that's my text. Just a copy paste. No point in rewriting the whole thing. Here's my big caption. And then I need to have that link to more information. So I'm going to go ahead and say, do a navigation. And inside that navigation, I'm going to have a link, ahref equals. In this case, it's going to be going over to YouTube, but we'll put in a little stubbed in link here. This goes to an anchor for a second, and that'll be a link. And there's my navigation. Now, let's go ahead and replicate that for a second. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So I've got 7 different lines there. So we'll do a 7YY, and then we'll paste it in here 4 times. Now I'm just replicating my text, and that's, for right now, that's okay. Let me go ahead and save what I've got. And you can see that already I've now created a website that has a screenshot, which the image doesn't exist yet, and that's okay. And then some information about FreeDOS, and then below that, a link to more information. And then I can add more to that. So below that, I'm going to want to add, we're going to fill all that in later. And then below that, I want to have another section. And so I'll just add a little bit of spacing here. So we're going to have another section. What's going to be in that section? Well, that section is going to be about downloading FreeDOS, right? So we'll just say download FreeDOS. And I want to have some information boxes. And I don't know of a normal HTML structure that will actually create an information box. So I'm going to do that on my own by using what's called a div. And so we're going to do a div, and we'll actually give it a class so we can do some stuff with it later in terms of styling, and we'll call it an info box. So I'll end it down there. And so what's going to be in my info box? Well, I'm going to need to have a heading in there first, right? So the heading is going to be something about what I have on the test site right now. So I had different ways to install FreeDOS. And so I'm going to say a cd-rom installer. Oops, cd-rom installer. And then I've got some information below that. Now I don't want to retype the information. Let's go ahead and just type some information up here. Go, and then we'll paste it in. And then I had some links to get more information. So I'm going to put that inside a nav. In putting inside a nav, you're actually, again, making it easier for people who are using screen readers, because now they can just, their screen reader is going to tell them these are navigation links. And so it also helps you to keep the website a little bit more organized. So under nav, I'm going to have one link that is going to be to information. And so let's just say, what was the actual text I used? Over here, I called it instructions. So over here, we'll say instructions. And normally I would have an icon on that to actually put a little like right arrow on it. But for now, let's put in a greater than symbol. And then below that, I had next to that, rather, I had another one, which was a link to download. So download now. Now I actually have an icon in front of that. So just to take the place of putting in an icon, for right now, let's just add an HTML character called block. Oops, block. And that'll just generate a filled in square. And so what have I done here? I've now created a information box with about the cd-rom installer, tells you a little bit about the cd-rom installer, and then gives you download links to go get it. And so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different lines there. So I'm going to do an 8 yank, and then I'm going to go ahead and paste that in a couple of times. And now if I save that page and then reload what I've got over here, you can see that now I have my these 4 different info boxes. Now I haven't applied any styles to them, so we're getting completely unstyled web page at the moment. That's totally fine. By the way, you'll notice that figures tend to get indented a little bit here. We'll fix that later on. Now below that, I want to have different news about FreeDOS. And so I'm going to go ahead and just for now, create another section that below this one, do section and slash section. And for that, I'm going to title that What's New. Make that with a right single quote. Quote, I think it is. What's new? And then down here, we're going to have a series of articles, and each one will have a header. So we'll put in H3 article title. We should make that uppercase. Article title. And then we're going to have another information down here with a time and date, and then the actual news itself. And so we'll just, for right now, just say more news here. We're going to actually see where that's going to go in just a little bit. But for right now, let's go ahead and just create I've already got a slash article. No, I don't. There we go. So we're just going to create that little demonstration. We'll fill that in here in a little bit. Just to save what I've got and look at what we're doing. You can see that now I've got another section below this that has what's new. And there's my articles that will go into that spot. And then the footer, we want to add a footer. And so down here, we're going to add a footer. And so what I want to put in the footer, I want to put several types of things. I want to have a nav bar that has links to social media. So what I want to have in there. So let's go ahead and add in a link to social media. href is, well, this one, for example, would go to, this would go to our Facebook. And I don't know exactly what the full URL is. For right now, we'll just do that. And we'll put in, again, we'll have an icon. But for right now, let's just put in an HTML block. And then down here, we're going to have another one. And this will go to our Twitter. I don't remember exactly what the full URL is right now, so I'm just going to put in a link to Twitter. And then again, another HTML block. And then we want to have another one that goes to our YouTube channel. And so we're going to do https youtube.com. And I can't remember exactly what the URL is again, so I'm just going to link to YouTube itself. We'll fix that in a bit. And then there's our HTML block. And then there's another one that goes to our store, and that lives on Zazzle. You're getting the point. I don't remember exactly the full path, so I'll just put it into the top page, and then we'll put an icon for it that we'll swap out later on. And then below that navigation link, I want to have a series of other navigation links. And so I'm going to have, for example, a set of navigation links. And I would have one that links to my personal webpage, so /jhall. That's Jim Hall. And then another one that's going to go to the page on our website that talks about supporting me through Patreon. So if you want to support me through Patreon, you can get more information there. And so there's /Patreon, and then support me on Patreon. I'll add a link or an image, an icon for Patreon after this, but for right now, we'll sort of stub in with an HTML block. And then same thing for people who don't want to use Patreon, but they want to use PayPal, maybe to support me. And so I'll do another thing down here to PayPal and support me PayPal. And again, I'll put in an icon for PayPal, but for right now, we'll just hold on to it with a block. And that seems like a good grouping of links there. I don't want to have too many at once because those are kind of related to each other. So we'll do another navigation set here. Nav, that's going to go to some other parts of the website. So we might have something about our different books so you can learn about FreeDOS. And so let's put in a link to books. Another one that goes to our blog, or rather our snapshot of the old blog that we used to have, but we want to hang on to it. And so link to blog. And then I was going to put a link to the links page down here, but again, I want to get rid of the links page. And so what really makes sense is some people want to put a FreeDOS image on their website. So let's find a place where people can put images about FreeDOS. And so we'll say images link down there. And we have another link we want to put on there because we've got several things posted on SourceForge. And so for right now, normally it would be an image button, but for right now, we'll just make a link here that says going to SourceForge, https sourceforge.net. And this will be a SourceForge button logo, which we'll put in later. So actually, we'll make that an image right now. Image source equals, and then we don't actually have one, so we'll just say sf.png. Alt is SourceForge logo. And then that's the bottom of our page. That's the end of our footer. And that's the end of the actual HTML file itself. So we'll go ahead and save that. And you can see that now I've got a website that is pretty bare. But again, at the top, I've got my logo, or what's going to be a logo, the various navigation links, and the search box if you need more information. We've got the welcome, and we'll put the images there in a little bit. I've got downloading FreeDOS and these different placeholders for images that we'll have later on. So we've got the big square that's will be an icon of some other kind later on. That'll be the down arrow, for example. And we'll replace the this right angle with a chevron later on down the road. But it's kind of a nice placeholder to remind yourself that there's an image that's going to go there, an icon of some kind that'll go there. Below that we have the link to, or the news, and so we'll fill that in a little bit. And then in the footer, we've got various information links. So we've got links to Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and our Zazzle store, as well as the various links that are providing more information that you might want to find out about FreeDOS. Now, this is unstyled content. That's why you're seeing this in the white background with sort of a Times New Roman style font. So we can actually make updates to that. So let's go ahead and do that. Now I'm going to just apply a little bit of bare styling this just to kind of get the point across. And so up here in the head, I can actually add a set of styles. And I'm going to do that with this style tags. Now, normally I wouldn't do that. Normally I would link to a style sheet, but for creating a test page, this is not a bad way to do it. And then I'll put that into a separate file later on down the road. Now I need to create some styles. Now this uses a different syntax than what you're using for HTML. So here we're going to actually give it the name of the tag. And so the actual body of the HTML page is going to be just called body. And then the styles for it go between these little curly braces. And I like to use sort of C programming style, so I'm going to put those on separate lines. It also makes it really easy to put other stuff in between. And then I'm going to add into that body, I'm going to say I'm going to have a background color that's going to be white, and then the color itself is going to be black. And then the margin is going to be 0. Why do I put in a margin? Well, because you'll notice over here, not everything goes to the actual left-hand side of the page. With a margin 0, this is going to be, all this text is going to squeeze up right up to the left-hand side of the page. So let's go ahead and just save that real quick just to kind of see what we're looking at. And we'll go ahead and reload our page. And you can see that everything kind of mushed up to the left-hand side. Now we didn't actually do anything with the vertical side because this heading up here also has some margin attached to it by default. And so that's why you're showing up the space up here. Let's go ahead and add some background colors just so we can kind of see what's going on. Now we've got a header at the top of our page, and we have a main in the middle of the page, and at the bottom we've got obviously the footer. And so in the header, I'm going to make that a background color. And let's make that a background color of just light blue. Just why am I using light blue? It's not the real color I'm going to use, but for right now, just so we can kind of see what the colors are, we're going to use light blue. Down here under main, we use a background color that let's pick a color that gives us a little bit of something in the background, but with that so we know where the box begins and ends. And for that, I'm going to use an actual HTML color code. I'm going to use pound EEE. That, by the way, is the same as saying EE, 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 because that is a red, green, and blue color code. You can use uppercase or lowercase. I like to use all lowercase. And if they're the same value, I'll just do the shorthand, which is using 3 repeated letters. And I'm going to also set my, down here, the background on the footer. And so that background, we're going to set that background color just temporarily to a dim gray. And if I save that page, you can now see over here what's going on. I now have a header that has this light blue color, and my body text under main has this gray background. And then all the way at the bottom of the page, you can see now I've got my my footer has the gray background. Now I'm not done, so we're just sort of doing this so we can kind of see what we're doing. Let's go ahead and before we go too much further, let's go ahead and actually change this text over here. So let's go back into my editor and replace some of this text with actual text. And so I'm going to go ahead and replace this fig caption for after the information box about what is FreeDOS. We're going to have this thing about games. I'm going to highlight that, and I'm going to paste that there. And I'm going to do the same thing down here. Place that text with this text, and then big caption. And then we'll do that one more time down here with this last bit about embedded systems. And we'll paste that in. And as long as we're doing that, let's go ahead and change our text for the different installers. So remember, we've got the cd-rom installer, and we also have the USB installer. And that is going to be this text. And then down here, instead of the cd-rom installer, with this one is going to be the floppy installer. And that text, I'll go ahead and just copy and paste what I've got on the test site right now, because that wording seemed to work out pretty well. And then the last one was about not the cd-rom installer, and actually not any kind of installer, but it was about the files archive. Let's go ahead and change that. And highlight that. And actually, instead of instructions, that one was, let's replace this word as learn more. Okay. And then instead of download now, we could use files archive. What do I use right now on the site? We use download now. So for right now, I'll just kind of use that as download now. And let's go ahead and save that. And you can see that now I've updated the website with the new text, but I haven't updated the rest of the style. So let's go ahead and do that. So at the top of the page, I'm going to go ahead and update the styles to now have more information or to organize that in a slightly different way. So under the main, well, let's start under header. So under the heading, if it's a header, and then under the header we have an H1, then I'm going to do some things there. So I'm going to say that will be a margin of 0. And actually for the entire header, I want to go ahead and center everything. So I'll say text align center. And then for my main, got a main heading 2 that I'm using. And so let's do that as a, we'll set that font size to be, let's say 1.5, whatever my current font size is. And so I'd like to do that with using the M. And so that way I'm not setting a specific text size on the screen. Again, if you're visually impaired, you may have set your browser to use a larger font size. And so I don't want to mess that up for you by setting a specific font size. And so by using a font size of 1.5 M, an M, an EM, is the size of one letter. And so here it's basically saying the heading 2 is going to be 1.5 times the size or the height of regular text. And so if you set a really big font in your browser, then you'll get a slightly bigger font for the heading. If I had set that to be a specific point size, like maybe I wanted to be like 16 point or something, then if you'd set a really big font size in your browser, then suddenly you get a very small text in the header. And maybe for you, that's going to be too small to read. So always try to set your font sizes in terms of an M, EM. So we're going to set that font size for a heading of being 1.5. And then for inside those articles, remember I had a main H3. That was a heading 3 inside the main section. And that will have it be the same size as regular text as well. So we'll just do that styling there. Also in main, I have the figures. And normally a figure has some margin attached to it. And so for this one, we're going to just say margin of 0. So again, I'm not changing a ton of stuff. We just want to kind of do this one at a time. And so if I bring over to the test page and do a reload on that, you can now see that everything is now looking a little bit more like you'd expect to see on the website. It's not completely there, but we're getting closer. So I actually would probably want to put in some images at this point. And let's go ahead and do that now. So I've got on the page, I've got, let's go ahead and actually exit this file for a second. Inside the images directory, I've got a number of images over here. So let's go ahead and put some images in. The easiest way, the fastest way I can think to put that in there right now, let's just go ahead and say, do an ls on images, everything in images. And you can see that if I do that, and if I pipe it to some other file or another command, you can see it's going to put them one per each line. So that's actually what I want. Let's go ahead and do that list, and we'll append it to the end of my index page. And you'll notice that I also have the news.html. That's actually a bunch of news items that got pulled out of the website. It's not currently up to date, but it's close enough. And so we're going to go ahead and include that into the page automatically. We're going to do that actually through a PHP command. And to do that, I need to rename or move my index.html file to an index.php file. Now let's go into the index.php. And let's first of all go ahead to the bottom of my page, bottom of my file, and let's move some of these images around. So let's go ahead and cut that, and we'll jump up to my heading 1. And we'll put that in there. Let's go get rid of that line. We'll add in an H1. And that should usually link back to the main page on the site, the top page. So an ahref equals and then slash. And then an image tag in here that says the source image for that is the /images/FreeDOS 4.svg. And then the alternate text for that, if you aren't seeing the image, is going to be FreeDOS logo. And then there's our closing A tag, because that's a link. And then there's our close for the H1. And you know what? I probably should be a little bit more organized and actually indent these lines. So I'm going to go ahead and do that real quick. And then let's put in the screenshot. So we'll jump down to the bottom of the page. And let's go ahead and grab all of these. So I'm going to do a 4 ED, and then we'll go up to the first time we have a figure. And let's go ahead and just paste these lines in. So the first one that I want is the link to the screenshot, the video. And so for that, I'm going to go ahead and just insert that in right here. So I have an image source equals the images video latest. And then for that, we're going to have alt text is going to be, needs to be reasonable. So if you're not actually seeing the images, so maybe you're doing this with a screen reader, this should be something representational of the image. And so this is a video of FreeDOS. And that's my image. And this actually should link to something. So we'll put a link in there. So we'll do an ahref equals, and that's going to link to the YouTube channel. But for right now, I'll just link to the top of YouTube. And we'll do another tag over there for /a. And now we can get rid of this image, which doesn't actually work. The next one was a game. So we'll just take that and we'll move it down here. And then we'll go ahead and do the same thing. So ahref equals. And so I want that to go to more information about games. And so about games will be where we'll put that. And then our image source equals, and then /images/Petra, and then alt equals, and then we'll say screenshot of post apocalyptic Petra game. And there's the end of my tag. And now I can get rid of that image. And then I had Quattro Pro. That was the next one we had in the list. And so we'll do a delete on that. And we'll go down here to where that needed to be. And right here, we'll go ahead and insert that image. And we'll do the same thing. Ahref equals, and then I want to have more information about using legacy applications. So we'll do a /about, and then we'll just say apps. And then we'll add our image. So image source equals /images/Quattro Pro. And then the alternate text is going to be a screenshot of Quattro Pro spreadsheet. And there's the end of my image and the end of the link tag. And then the last one we had was this music image. And so now I need to go down here to where that needed to be. Then before I go too much further, I need to get rid of this dead image. There we go. And now let's go ahead and insert this image. Again, it's going to be a link, more information about embedded systems. So we'll do /about/embedded. And then I add my image. Image source equals /images/music.png. And then alt text is screenshot of music player. And then get rid of that image. Now, if I go ahead and save this, you can see that now I've updated the website to actually have some images. This is starting to look more like the FreeDOS website that we are familiar with. So some other things that we can do to this, and I'm not going to go the full way in this video, but I wanted to show a little bit about what you can do. We can actually style, and by the way, I need to include all of my news down here. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So in my file, where do I have my articles? So down here, I've got my articles. Let's go and get rid of these 4 lines. And we're going to use a PHP command. So for that, I'm going to use the question mark PHP. That's going to be ended with a question mark and then a closing bracket. And then in there, we're going to say include and then a file. So that's going to be news.html. Let's go ahead and save that file. And now we will see we've got the entire contents of my news page. Now, a better way to do that, by the way, is to use a different function that will actually just dump the contents of that file to the output. But just for ease of making this page work, I'm going to go ahead and use the include because that's a little bit more descriptive about what it's doing. And you can see, yeah, this is including all the news that we have on FreeDOS. Now, just a couple other things that we can do to this page to make it look a little bit more like we'd expect it to. We can apply some styling on our navigation links. And so up here at the top of the page, I'm going to, so at the top here, let me just jump over to the header. And instead of these links, I actually have block, and then that's a placeholder for an image, and that'll be going to our wiki. Down here, I want to have another placeholder. It's called block, and then that'll go to our forums. We'll have another placeholder. And if you remember what that was going to be, jump over here to the test site. That was going to be our bugs, so you can report a bug, and then our source code, and then the about page. So bugs, and then source, and then out. And I've got 5 links there, and then over here I've got 5 links. And so I've got that correct. So I'm not missing anything. Wiki, forums, bugs, source, and about. And then I've got the search box. So I'll go ahead and get rid of this extra link down there. And so if I write that, again, you can see one at a time. I'm just going to be now updating these. And the squares are, again, will be filled in later with an actual image of some kind, an icon. Now, there are some things that we can do to this and make it look a little bit more like the site that we are familiar with. So the in the header, by the way, the tabs are the spacing I'm putting in here, indenting, is meaningless. CSS or web pages will actually ignore the indented lines. It's not like Python where indenting is important, but I'm using it to kind of show some hierarchy to kind of help myself later on down the road. So header h1 image. Well, that's going to be the FreeDOS logo. And so I'm going to make sure that that's going to always have a width of 320. Why 320 pixels? Because my screenshots, I know are going to be 320 pixels by 240, because I just took a 640 by 480 image and I just scaled it down until it looked like an image that was going to kind of work. So I'm going to set the width to be that, but I also want to make sure that the height gets set appropriately. I don't know exactly what the height needs to be if I scale it down to that size, so I'm going to let the browser do that for me. I'll just say auto. And I want to do some other things here. If I'm in the header, I'll put that up here. If I'm in the header and I have a link, let's go ahead and set the all links in the header to be we'll make that color will be white. And rather than light blue, let's actually just change that to, for right now, we'll change that to like a steel blue. I don't know if that's the color I'm going to use at the end, but we'll make it a steel blue for right now. By the way, because this this image is inside a link tag, I want to have somewhere that tells me images inside headers. Or images inside links. I want to make sure they're vertically aligned, and I'm going to do that actually at the top level. And I'm going to say anything that's inside an image is inside an A tag. An A tag is a link. I'm going to say vertical align is in the middle. I could put that into its own separate lines, but this is just a one line fix. So I'm going to do that. Let's go ahead and save that. And you can see again, now I've got something looking a little bit more like what we're used to. Probably should do some changes on the website so it doesn't actually have the underlines on there, and I can do that with a text decoration. So up here, we'll do a text decoration that will say none. Now, anytime I have a nav, let's actually do something with nav. Now, I want to do this across all navs, and I could do this at the top, but I know it's going to be under the header as well. So let me go ahead and just set, if it's a nav, let's actually say it's got a background color, just so we can see it. We'll set that to be a pink. And I want it to be, I want to apply some styling around that. And so I'm going to make a padding, and that means space that's inside the link itself, but doesn't actually go beyond sort of, we'll say, the bounding box. That padding is going to be 1 em on top, and we'll say half an em on either side. So, oops, half an em. And just so we can see it, any nav link, we're going to have that background color. We want that to be, let's set that to be a hot pink color. So it's similar to the background color. I just want to make sure that we can see what these links are. And so now I've done quite a bit here. I've actually changed the navigation bars to be pink, and the links themselves will have some color styling on them as well. And so I go up here to my page and I reload. And you can see that now you can see where all of the navigation bars are. And you can see I've got my my link up here. This is a navigation link. That's a navigation link. And then down here, I've got my navigation links for the instructions. I've got navigation links to share across different social media for every one of those articles. And then at the bottom, my footer, well, it's really just made of nothing but navigation links. So even though it's got a dark gray background, because I've set navigation to be pink, you can see that I've got pink across my footer as well. Now I've also added a whole bunch of spacing in here, so we can fix that later on. But for right now, I just kind of wanted to show you what that looks like. And then just to undo some of the stuff that I've done here, let's actually do something else. One last change, and then I'll call this video done. Let's first of all go ahead and undo this hot pink background color. And then I've got inside certain types of links. I've got some that I want to have a border on them, and I want other ones to kind of look like an actual button. And I can do that using classes. And so it's under main, really, that this is going to happen, but I'll put under here. So if it's a main and then it's a link, which is an A, and I want to have just a border around it, I'm going to call that actually a class equals border. And the way that you specify that in HTML, or rather the style sheet, is with a dot. And so a dot, and then it's going to be call it a border, because that'll be the border button. And for that, I'm going to have a border be 1 pixel, solid of, let's make it dim gray for now. The color itself will be dim gray. And let's put a background color on that. So the background color will be just for testing purposes, we'll call this a ghost white color. It's kind of off-white, a little bit bluish, so it looks a little cold. If I want to hover over that, so we'll do a main a.border, and then the hover is added by putting in a colon. And so if I hover over that link, what I want to do, I want to probably change the background color to white, and I'm going to make the border 1 pixel solid black, and I'm going to make the color be black as well. So basically it's providing some hints that you've hovered over something that looks kind of like a button. And then if it's actually a button, should look like a button, we'll do an a dot, and we'll call it a class, will be a button. It's different than an actual button HTML element, but here we're going to set a background color to be, let's do a Dodger blue, right? There's these different colors in HTML, one of which is a Dodger blue, and I kind of use that one a lot for buttons, and so that's not a bad thing to have. For my border, I'm going to set that to be 1 pixel solid, and then let's do it as a dark blue. And then the color inside there is going to be white. And then again, if I hover over that, what should the hover look like? Well, main a.button, and then colon hover, and that will just change the background color to a different kind of blue. And so that one will do, we'll do a royal blue. That seems like a good blue to have. And then the border will be a 1 pixel solid, just regular blue. And then the color will, well, the color will still be white. We'll leave that one as is. Now, and I actually need to do something to make those buttons look like those buttons. And so down here, where do I want those to show up? Well, here I've got this link to more information. And so I want to have that to be a class of a border. So it's not a full button, it's just sort of a bordered button. And we'll do the same thing down here. Oops. There. And there we go. And then down here under the instructions, I want to do the same thing. Instructions is a link with a border on it. Instructions is another one with a border on it. Instructions is another one with a border on it. And then the one for the files archive, the learn more button. It just has a border on it. Now I've got other ones on here that are the download now. And I want this one to be an actual button that kind of gets your attention. And so for that, I'm going to say class equals button. And so for that, I'm now going to go ahead and apply that same style, that class, to each one of these, what I'll call action buttons. Here. And then that should be that. So let's go ahead and save that file. And then if I reload the page, we'll see some things that look a little bit like buttons. And I forgot to add some padding in there. So let's go ahead and fix that. So I've got padding on the pink, which is right now just a placeholder to tell me where the nav is, but I don't actually have something for styles of those nav links. And so if it's a main.a button or it's a main.a border, I actually can combine those two with another little trick in style sheets. I'll say main a.border, comma, and then main a button. Then I've got some styles I'm going to stick in there. And I'm going to do a couple of things in there. First of all, I want to make sure I've got a padding set. And we'll set that as just 1M. And then let's say a 0.5 M. And you know what? We should probably make sure there is a sort of a curve to the board bounding box. And so we'll say, let's go ahead and say border radius is 0.5 M, right? It's the same size that I've got for padding on the left and the right. And I'll go ahead and save that file. And now I go back up here, and if I do a reload on that page, you can now start to see these links, which should actually have longer text in them. So right now they're looking a little bit weird, but you can see I got these links underneath each one of my images that is providing more information. And if I hover over them, you can see the border changes to black. I probably should also change it so that I don't have that underline in there. So we'll go ahead and do that. Text decoration none. And let's, by the way, go ahead and where I have a figure, instead of having link, let's have that be, this will be a link to videos. And so let's go ahead and put in our icon for YouTube, which we'll just do a placeholder for block. And then we'll just say more videos. And then down here, it's going to be playing games. And then here it was going to be legacy apps. And then down here, it was going to be embedded systems. And actually, you know what? On these, I'm going to put in a greater than, because I'm going to put basically a little thing that reminds you that this actually goes somewhere. Let's go ahead and add that to all of those. And now if I reload my page, you can see I've got some things that looks a little bit more like what I'm supposed to have. I've got more videos. Again, there'll be an icon there for YouTube. Play games, legacy apps, and embedded. And then underneath each of the info boxes, I've got instructions and download now. And you can see that as I hover over them, they're changing color, background color. They've got that nice curve on the buttons themselves, and you can kind of see where they're going. The box itself, this nav bar, the reason these are sort of put in a little bit is because they've got this extra padding on the side with that 0.5 M. That's why these are there as well. Now, ultimately, eventually, these links for sharing to Facebook and Twitter and LinkedIn and Reddit. Those will all be replaced by icons. But for just right now, I kind of wanted to show the general process I go through. Whenever I create a new version of the website, I like to look at experimenting a little bit and going through those usability tests to get feedback on what the website should look like. And by going through this iterative design, I'm able to update the website. And after only doing it a couple of different times, a couple of different rounds of usability testing, we're going to end up with a design that I think everyone will find easy to use. And so I'll go ahead and end it there. So please join us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, and consider supporting me on Patreon. Thank you.